and they remark that it has become worse. Park Soo-ho arrives and inquires about what they are doing at the door. He enters and strikes him hard. After a while, the news reports that they are in Sapporo City, located in Hokkaido, where the Level 7 dungeon is situated. The entire world is focused on the appearance of the Level 7 dungeon, and it has been 10 days and 11 hours since Hiro's combat team of 25 members entered. Several citizens have taken to the streets, cheering for their safe return in various areas of Sapporo. He emerges with his combat team. The news reports that it is of utmost importance for the combat team to return alive from the effective raid of the dungeon, and his combat team has once again saved Sapporo. All the team members of the combat team are collapsing one by one, and the healers are rushing over while Hiro has also collapsed. According to on-site news, spots have opened on the team, and 7 members do not appear to have returned from the dungeon. Seeing how Hiro's combat team, which is the most powerful team in the world, has suffered 7 casualties, the difficulty of a level 7 dungeon is very concerning. Hiro is awakened in the hospital by Akiko, who asks him if everything is all right. He then requests some water, and she reassures him, saying he doesn't blame himself, it's not his fault. She also informs him that Park Soo-ho has extended an invitation to Mr. Dago, and asks if he doesn't think something seems fishy. Hiro believes that Dago, the second in command of the Supernatural Bureau, the state institution responsible for national defense, is much more prestigious than the Awakana Federation that brought him here. This suggests that the government is attempting to establish contact with Park Soo-ho. Hiro is certain that they are using him as a benchmark to create a better future, so he cannot afford any further delays due to a level 7 dungeon appearing much earlier than expected. He lost 7 companions unnecessarily, and it's all because of him. He thinks that someone who gathers criminals can't possibly have a good reason for his actions. For the sake of both his and humankind's future, he must eliminate Park Soo-ho. He instructs her to locate all the boats that can travel from Tsushima to Busan immediately, and, if there are none available, to arrange for one to be made so that they can depart. After a while, Park Jun-ho gets up at home and notices his card on the table. He realizes that he is now a registered mercenary. Han Dong-soo sits in his room and checks the Soo-ho Guild TV channel. He observes that the number of views has decreased since everyone learned that Soo-ho is a dungeon returnee, but he believes he has almost 10 billion won in his account now. While he's lost in thought, Park Jun-ho enters the room and asks if Ishik has gone somewhere because he can't find him anywhere. He remarks that Ishik is a training maniac who's probably practicing in the woods. Ishik thinks if this is slow, he'll fall behind again. He believes he can't let history repeat itself. Meanwhile, Park Soo-ho inquires with Myunjo about Monk Myunjin's health. The monk informs him that Monk Myunjin has been lying in bed, waking up repeatedly, and can even exercise in the morning now. He's also eating well. He tells his childhood memories to Park Soo-ho when other kids bullied him because he was an orphan and suffered from congenital systemic alopecia. He realized that he was different from others, so he built a wall around himself that separated him from the rest of the world. But one day, a master came and asked him not to come to the Bonamsa temple with him, and took him there. He says that the day Bonamsa temple burnt down would have been the end of senior brother Myunjo not caring about him, as he had fallen into the abyss. He says Myunjo saved him, whose soul had been wallowing in pain, once more and also rebuilt the burnt Bonamsa temple, allowing him to put down the burden in his heart. He says that now he has set his goal for the people who are suffering, and he will walk the path of an asura beside them. He jumps out of the window and says, next time, he's going to ride Titiabaki. Lee Sung-woo and Akiko are reaching Busan by boat. On the other side, in Suho Land, they are all eating food, and Park Jun-ho says Chief Secretary Chen from DGB has called. He mentions that they have finished the city plans using the drafts he provided, and tomorrow, they will bring a scaled map from the construction company. They will also commence the infrastructure and residential construction. Park Soo-ho advises ensuring that they aren't doing shoddy work while he is away. Jang Ishik inquires about his destination, to which he replies that he is going to England to meet Dr. Toddler. Han Dong-soo points out that he can't go right now because all airlines and ship routes are closed. He asks why, and Jang Ishik explains that there has been significant news regarding wyverns and megalpersons or something taking over the skies and seas. Park Jun-ho suggests that it might be fine if he flies there. However, he clarifies that even if he were to transform into a pigeon, he could only fly for about 10 minutes, prompting him to wonder how long he would have to wait. Jang Ishik checks his phone and mentions that the Chinese combat team attempted to fight against them, and experts estimate that China will destroy the monsters in a month. Han Dong-soo believes there must be another way, and he suggests finding an awakened golden eagle and taming it. Park Suho asks where he could find something like that, and he responds by mentioning that he saw it in a video on a survival YouTube channel. He explains that north of the DMZ is currently a haven for wild animals, and in that video, huge wild animals that had to awaken to survive were also introduced, including a massive golden eagle. Meanwhile, Lee Sung-woo and Akiko are traveling to Seoul by car. She says if their location were to be leaked somehow, there would be quite a significant issue. He responds it will likely become a diplomatic issue between countries. She asks, wouldn't it be safer to bring him onto an official stage like the SFC? He says he cannot delay any longer, and quietly assassinating him would be the cleanest method. On the other side, Park Suho and Han Dong-soo arrive at the DMZ to search for the golden eagle. However, Han Dong-soo is surrounded by a big boar pig from level 5 and a black rabbit from level 2. Park Suho comes and sends the rabbit back and sits on the pig, stating that they need a ride. He sits on a wolf and starts riding. The eagle they have come for has not been found yet. Park Suho calls Kim Miso and asks where Choi Soo-young is, mentioning that he has not been able to reach her for a while now. She informs him that she was dispatched to the Jeonbut region. He inquires whether he can contact her. Meanwhile, Choi Soo-young's team needs to retreat right now because their backup team is taking time to reach them. She instructs them to pack all the equipment and withdraw. She receives a call from Park Suho. He informs her that he needs to find an eagle right now and asks if she thinks she can locate an eagle with her clairvoyance. She becomes angry and informs him that she is hanging up. Han Dang-soo observes some smoke up ahead and asks, what does he think that is? He says it looks like smoke to him. Han Dong-soo checks the phone and says there are starfish, showing an article that states they have broken loose and are moving toward Gangwon-do. He explains that they shoot fire, causing explosions and burning their surroundings even when killed, making them quite troublesome to deal with. After a while, they observe feathers around them. Han Dong-soo remarks that the fire is spreading rapidly and they should make their escape. Animals and birds also flee to save their lives. Park Suho suggests that it might be an arsonist. All of a sudden, he spots the golden eagle among the birds and becomes delighted to see it. The news broadcasts on the wildfire in Gangwon-do. They report that experts are saying a local updraft is rapidly drawing in the wildfire that was initiated by the starfish. After a while, Han Dong-soo watches the news and says, this is why the TV news ratings are so low. He uploads the video he recorded and instantly garners 400,000 viewers. Park Jun-ho and Jang Yi-shik call him, informing him that a level 2 dungeon has appeared nearby, and they still have 3 free passes left. He asks if the two of them can't easily handle the level 2 dungeon on their own. Jun-ho explains that he has the largest number of skills, and Jang Yi-shik mentions that Monk Moonjin is waiting in the car. Han Dong-soo responds that he will come down once he finishes uploading the video he just edited. In the video, he adds an advertisement stating that the Earth is besieged by monsters, they have lost the sky, and the sea has been taken over, but nothing will deter Park Suho, and his adventure continues. Meanwhile, in the motel, Akiko observes the advertisement and informs Lee Sung-woo that it appears Park Suho is not currently in Korea, showing him the ad. He wonders why he would suddenly go to London. He contemplates whether if he came from a more distant future than him, he should know all of his plans and is purposefully avoiding him. He concludes that his avoidance implies that he's not yet prepared to confront him, and he must bring him onto the stage before he completes his preparations. She suggests that they can't wait here until he returns, and he responds that he needs to provoke him to take the stage. On the other side, Park Suho is heading to London and thinks that he can't go any faster. He worries that at this rate, he won't reach London anytime soon. He notices that a fire attribute skill has been removed from his status screen. He speculates that he probably didn't hear the alert because he passed out after extinguishing the wildfire. He checks the fire fairy's point, and it turns out to be very expensive. Suddenly, his status screen displays Geomsuri fusion time remaining, 60 seconds. Meanwhile, in Sinuiju, Chol-young is with his uncle Jong-seong, aiming at a bull. Chol-young shoots a bull and then observes something falling from the sky. He asks his uncle, what is that? His uncle responds, why, that is important, and they just need to take the cow. They approach the fallen object and discover many fire fairies. Chol-young says, doesn't it sound like a human? Jong-seong says it could be an alien that mimics human sounds. Meanwhile, Park Suho comes up on a mountain and says he thought he was going to die. They assume he is a person from Joseon. He introduces himself and asks about them. Chol-young introduces himself and says he fell from such a high place, but he is still quite hale. He says it hurt, but he is fine now and asks where they are. He says they are in Sinuiju, and if he goes a little further, he will reach the Yalu River. Chol-young asks why he fell from the sky. He says he was flying and just fell. He says that seeing that he looks well even after falling from the sky and crashing into a crazed bull, he seems to be a very strong awakener. Jongseong asks if he roams around by himself or if he has a companion. He says he does have a companion, but right now, he is on his own. He says he will continue on his way, and they've been chasing the bull, so they will take care of it. He asks if he is going in the right direction and checks his phone, but he has already dropped it somewhere. He uses his power and finds the phone, but it's broken. He says what he should do. On the other side, they both find a bull, and Jongseong says if they want to move it, they should probably cut it up, and it's also difficult to move while avoiding the wild animals. He says if they don't bring this with them, the villagers will starve to death. Park Soo-ho asks if he could borrow a blood crystal phone. Chol Young says they do have one in their village. Jongseong stops him and says to be careful with what he says because there are women and children in the village, so how can they take someone, an awakener at that, back with them? He picks up the bull and says he will move this for them, so please lend him their phone. Chol Young says they shouldn't take the bull back to the village first. Jongseong asks if he has already forgotten what the roaming awakeners did to them a year ago. He says they told them they were nomads, so they took them to the village, and they brought their companions over and plundered their village. They sit on their bike and tell him to follow them. They are shocked to see his speed. After a while, their village is reached, and they observe that it is in a bad state. Jongseong inquires about what is happening and why the gate is broken. He inquires about Jongmyeon. Dalsu informs them that they went to rescue Hyun. He asks about what happened to her. He explains that a winged beast suddenly appears and shoots fire everywhere, killing people and causing chaos everywhere. Amidst it all, Jongmyeon had everyone head for the shelters when she fell, and the monster took her. He mentions that Jongmyeon took a few people and followers after it. He asks where it took her. He responds that it went over that rocky mountain. He left to find her. Chol Young approaches Park Soo-ho and requests help, saying he will never forget such a favor. Soo-ho agrees and says to lend him his phone when he returns. Soo-ho transforms into an eagle and flies. On the other side, Kang-chul is being chased by a bear and is running to save his life, but unfortunately, he gets struck by a stone and falls. Jongmyeon is attacked by the bear, and the bear counterattacks them. After some time, he says that there is no way they can win against the crazy bear, and he suggests that they might die before they can find Hyun. They are badly injured by the bear when another person says they really might die if this continues. He says that it's already too late to save Hyun. There is no way that winged creature has kept her alive this long. Meanwhile, Park Soo-ho arrives and kicks the bear, throwing it away. They are shocked when they see him. They inquire about his identity, and he reveals that he came because Chol Young asked for a favor. He also asks about her whereabouts. He responds that it appears she was taken to the nest of the winged creature somewhere on the mountain. However, due to the sudden attack by this bear, they are currently stuck. He asks if that means they don't know where she is. The bear attempts to attack once again, but he retaliates and defeats it. He instructs the bear not to play dead, to open its eyes, bow down, and follow him. He then questions the bear if it knows where the winged creature is and suggests they go seek revenge. Jung Soong arrives and asks about her location. He informs him that he will go retrieve the child, so he should keep his promise. With the bear by his side, he runs and transforms himself into an eagle, flying away. After a while, she is found sitting in the cave of that winged creature, crying, when the bear and Park Soo-ho arrive. Park Soo-ho believes he is a wyvern and initiates an attack, forcing it out of the cave. He assures her that he will rescue her, instructing her to stay put and avoid moving. He contemplates whether it's possible to tame the creature as he observes that its dimensional energy is significantly higher than his own. To investigate the possibility, he checks his status screen and concludes that maybe it is feasible. He launches an attack on it, but defeating the creature proves to be quite challenging. The wyvern's constitution level is constantly decreasing, and it has reached 9%. He thinks it's time to tame it. He uses emergency recovery to heal the wyvern's wounds, then sits on it and starts riding. After a while, Park and Hyun reach the village, riding on the wyvern, and everyone is shocked to see this. After some time, they sit down to eat food, and the children play with the wyvern. Park Soo-ho watches them play and thinks that since it has been tamed, its friendliness towards others is much higher, as long as the other party isn't its enemy. Once a creature is tamed, he can see its past, and the horde of wyverns above Mount Baekdu was almost annihilated by the Chinese and Russian alliance. As a runt of the litter, this one was flying quite far behind the rest of the horde, and because of that, it was lucky enough to survive. Although it succeeded in escaping the battlefield, it was suffering from pain and hunger when it crossed the border. After finding the village and kidnapping the child, it discovered Ilgam's cave. cave, which was full of the bear's food reserves. Jongmyeong thanks him and says that he even gives them food using magic, fixes their houses, and heals their injuries. He says they were happy back before the government lost its role because of the Great Disaster, and the warlords became independent and fought against each other. There was a time when they were poor and hungry, but they live happy lives as a family, and neighbors help each other. When even fighting together proves difficult, they are torn apart and scattered. He asks how they can stop the creatures that keep coming since surviving has become so difficult. More and more people are starting to escape to the continent. He says there are probably several thousand people like them who lead a nomadic life, but now that number has probably decreased quite a bit. This is due to the lack of prey and crops, as well as animal attacks and looters. He reiterates that there are over 400 people from each region who have settled here, but in the 2 years since they first settled here, their numbers have dropped to 60. He states that today's incident is happening right as they are about to move, and they just can't endure it any longer. Park Suho asks if the continent is considered safe. He says how a safe place can exist in the current world, given the vast territory and the potentially incomparable numbers of creatures and looters over there compared to those here. However, he has heard that several protective barriers surround Beijing, protecting the citizens. He acknowledges that it won't be easy to live so far from home, where the language is not understood and there is a lack of any connection. Still, for refugees, the only hope is for everyone to reach that place alive. After a while, Jongmyeong mentions that a room on the second floor over there has been cleaned out. He states that he has somewhere to go. He instructs Chol Young to fetch one of the red stone hand phones from the room. Taking the phone, he mentions that he will make good use of it. Before leaving, he employs his magic to drop numerous blood crystal stones, suggesting that they should use them when they need help in the future. The newscast reports that the horde of wyverns, which had been blocking the airways and instilling fear in everyone, has been annihilated over Mount Baekdu by the Russian and Chinese alliance. This morning, another battle took place between the surviving wyvern and the Russian Air Force. However, the video of that wyvern being controlled by an awakener is quickly spreading among those who witnessed it, and the people are cheering over the appearance of a dragon knight. According to the news, just a few moments ago, a portal breach occurred on Banpo Bridge without any warning, and as a result, 2 fire ants emerged from the portal, plunging the entire bridge into pandemonium. Meanwhile, Lee Sung-woo has come to Banpo Bridge to combat the ants and, with the Shilla Guild, takes care of the 2 monsters in 10 minutes. On the other side, the news is announcing that, according to the information they received a moment ago, the Dragon Knight who has joined the fight while riding a wyvern is surprisingly a Korean, Park Suho. The report states that the interview with the Japanese hero Lee Sung-woo, who received a lot of attention due to his surprising appearance at Banpo Bridge not long ago, is currently sparking controversy. He says, "Let's watch the footage from the interview." Lee Sung-woo explains that reports claim Park Suho, who possesses the taming skill and is referred to as the Tornado God, came to prove that his skills are all a scam. He further mentions that Park Suho ran away because he knew he was coming to Korea, and everyone would discover that he was a con artist once they met him. Lee Sung-woo emphasizes that Park Suho is merely a common tamer, and his skills have never been professionally examined. He is being used by the government as a means to earn money. He challenges Park Suho, stating that if he's watching and wants to prove himself, he should stop the circus show and come to the SPFC stage. Park Jun-ho watches the news about Park Suho's visit to Russia and questions what he is doing there when he had previously claimed he was going to England. The director contacts him and inquires about Park Suho. He responds that they also cannot reach him and becomes irritated because the director calls daily. Han Dong-soo remarks that he wouldn't have dared to even stare at them just a few months ago, but now he pesters them almost every day. He also notes that Park Suho's worth is currently extremely high. He comments that many people want to move to the area once it's designated as the 13th district of Seoul, and the world is eager to have Park Suho. He agrees with this sentiment, stating that people should live like that. He adds that the director has suggested constructing a protective wall after Park Suho's land is designated as Seoul's 13th district, along with tax exemptions, and the bureau taking care of easier dungeons. He mentions that they hope to have Park Suho's guild join as the advanced team when a level 7 dungeon appears, but he cannot make such a decision on his own while Park Suho is absent. He also expresses uncertainty about whether their guild can handle becoming the 13th district and raiding a level 7 dungeon simultaneously. He believes that being the advanced team for level 7 dungeons is a different matter, as they would receive the best treatment in exchange for their lives, and there's no need for them to take on such a task at this moment. He reflects on the chaos in Korea due to Lee Sung-woo's taunt in the 13th District issue, noting that Park Soo-ho seems to be pursuing his agenda. After a while, Dr. Tobler contacts Park Soo-ho on the phone and inquires if he can meet him because he is en route to their designated meeting place. He also mentions that he can see the 3 stone golems behind his car. Park Soo-ho responds that he will handle them and attacks the golems with his fire fairy power, quickly defeating them. He remarks that they appear weaker than they look and wonders if it's because of their low level. Dr. Tobler expresses his appreciation by stating that Park Soo-ho is truly as excellent as the rumors suggest. He takes a picture of the wyvern and identifies it as the famous Tadu wyvern. He mentions that the Russians may mistake it for other wyverns, leading to their artistic depictions, and asks the artist for more information. He replies that it has become an artistic monster. Dr. Tobler adds that although it was only a brief encounter, he could sense the aura of the Dragon Knight and thank him for saving his life. He comments on the natural translation and assumes that he must be using a good Korean translator, specifically the Naver's Blood Crystal translator. He questions if this is London due to the chaotic situation. He explains that the situation in England, and particularly in London, is dire, especially after sunset when the area becomes even more dangerous. He suggests they proceed with their plans. Park Soo-ho orders the wyvern to return home and opens a portal, which he describes as a beast summoning portal. He notes that seeing such a large creature enter the beast farm implies it is at least level 3. Dr. Tobler acknowledges Park Soo-ho's knowledge and mentions that he is currently a hot topic worldwide, expressing his desire to meet him. He asks about the location of his lab, and he reveals that it's in New Dover. He questions why he chose to meet in the current location rather than at the lab. He explains that he came to gather materials for his research. He mentions a recent large-scale bombing in London that provided ample tissue samples and blood crystals from deceased monsters. He is researching the possibility of creating a permanent teleportation portal similar to his Beast Farm portal. He also suggests that the monster teleportation portals work similarly, allowing rapid worldwide travel even if the skies and seas are overrun by monsters. Park Soo-ho finds the idea convenient, and he emphasizes the urgency of preparing for a future where airlines and sea routes are blocked. He believes that without adequate preparation, humankind may become isolated and face challenges in survival. He then asks him why he wants to meet with him. All of a sudden, a humpback whale appears in front of their car, and they are about to crash. A tentacle shark is going to eat them and break the bridge. A helicopter arrives there and announces that the small vehicle crossing the bridge has been involved in a crash, and those in the pursuit are trying their best to rescue them. David inquires, "Isn't the car that just fell Professor Tobler's?" She instructs them to leave the toddler to her and to go take care of the tentacle shark. She dives underwater and checks that the car is empty. She observes the shark chasing the whale. The whale emerges from the water, and the rescue team notices that there are people on the humpback whale's fin. Dr. Tobler, who is on the whale's fin, says that they might be eaten. Park Soo-ho employs his power to create a tornado, and then summons the fire fairy, successfully escaping with the whale. After some time, they both sit in a house on the mountain and have tea. Park Soo-ho remarks that it's a beautiful place. Dr. Tobler looks at the whale and says that the whales have probably become extinct due to sea monster attacks, and fortunately, he encounters him. He mentions that this is truly a town on the edge of the world. He explains that England has been pushed to the end of the land, and they no longer have a place to retreat. They are in the middle of a large construction project to build protective walls. He admits he still can't forget the terrifying events of last night. He adds that it's surprising that he can communicate with the animals he has tamed. But what astonishes him even more is that he can see the fire tornado, which has only appeared on YouTube, with his very eyes not once, but twice. He says there has not been an awakener who could tame beasts and invoke skills with all 4 attributes, earth, wind, fire, and water at the same time. He inquires about the kind of life he lived before awakening. He remarks that it was just ordinary and he lived a unique life in the animal kingdom. He asks if he is the one who invented the dimension energy measuring device. He confirms that he did make it. He asks about the principles behind it. He inquires about what he is curious about. He explains that whenever he gets measured, he feels like someone is observing him, and this relates to the planet he returned from. He mentions that what used to be a planet was fragmented and appeared as a dungeon. That level 4 dungeon was only a small part of the land. Instead of the animal friends that lived there, it was filled with lizards that he had never seen before. He inquires about what happened to his friends on that planet. why he has not aged at all in 1,000 years, why he is still alive now, and who the people who keep observing him are whenever he checks his dimensional energy with the device. He states that the reason he came all this way is to get the answers to those questions from the one who is the expert on this topic. He suggests that he believes his questions and the reason he has recently been interested in Hangul and the Korean language are related. Dr. Toddler takes him underground into the basement and explains that it has been constructed to withstand even a nuclear bomb. He adds that it is his lab, but it also serves as a government facility, and he is the first outsider to enter this place. Dr. Toddler says it's a bit messy, and Park Soo-ho agrees. Dr. Toddler explains that despite the appearance, the facilities are complete, including lab equipment for analysis and an equipment tester. This remarkable device can automatically visualize the blueprint of any object when its code is input, and, as demonstrated, it can even recognize voices. He also points out the ores found in dungeons, emphasizing that they aren't merely ornamental but used for research purposes. Dr. Toddler inquires about the familiar scribbles and mentions that these are pictures taken from dungeons over the past 2 months. He finds it surprising that Earth language, specifically Hangul, has been discovered in all the dungeons they've entered in recent weeks. He asks if several versions of the same dungeon have appeared. Park Soo-ho explains that there is a level 3 dungeon in Berlin, a level 4 dungeon in Oslo, and a level 5 dungeon in Athens. These dungeons have appeared in 8 locations in Europe, 2 in Africa, and 3 in Asia, including the recent one in Korea. Dr. Toddler confirms that the levels are different, and they appear at different times as well. He contemplates that he had been informed about connected portals appearing near returnees and wonders if the current situation is a result of it being a dungeon rather than a new planet. He questions whether a planet shattered and got duplicated, pondering the fate of the animals that inhabited it. He expresses curiosity, which is why he wants to speak with Park Soo-ho. He explains that he thought meeting Park Soo-ho might unveil the truth behind the creation and destruction of the dungeons, which has led to numerous hypotheses and confusion. However, one day, the creator of the Hangul writing system, whom he had longed to meet, contacted him. He reflects that this person might not possess any pertinent information. He mentions that he knows he was curious about the dimension energy measuring device, so he has something to show Park Soo-ho. He discovers an object and reveals a stone, explaining that it's called a memory stone. Park Soo-ho inquires about what he invented. He mentions that thanks to the information recorded in the God Stone, they were able to create many devices. One of these devices is the stone case, which successfully processes the memory stone and connects it to deliver the information etched into it. He adds that the memory stone starts exchanging information with anything it comes into contact with, although it is still somewhat limited. Using this method, the device examines the information and invites Park Soo-ho to try touching it. After Park Soo-ho touches the screen, he notes that he has surpassed the dimensional energy of a B rank in just 3 months. He acknowledges that such achievements can be attributed to him being irregular. He inquires if it's a portable dimensional energy measuring device, and he confirms it. He also mentions his plans to reduce its size continuously. He also mentions that he has a physical measuring device he recently created and asks if he would like to try it out. He inquires if this device was also created with the same stone as he shows it to him. Dr. Toddler confirms that it's correct, but he explains that the stone case's function is different. They found that the stone exchanges a significant amount of information. Through ongoing research, they recently discovered that it can also analyze a person's physical information. He elaborates that with this measuring device, they can assess an awakener's strength and agility. By classifying awakeners not just based on their dimensional energy but also on their physical abilities, they can assemble more effective combat teams than they currently have. He concludes that this implies there hasn't been an awakener who could perceive not only their physical attributes but also those of others. Meanwhile, he mentions that he has finished creating the prototype, and the official showcase is scheduled for tomorrow. He adds that it would be a great honor if he would be the first to try it out. He agrees, but the device displays an error. He remarks that there wasn't any problem yesterday. Quickly, he calls the director and informs him that they might need to cancel the scheduled showcase for tomorrow. There appears to be a sudden error with the machine, and he is uncertain about why it occurred. After some time, Park Soo-ho comes across a picture and comments on how there were areas where classy novels were written, wondering why they only focused on such matters. He apologizes and expresses a desire to continue their conversation, but something has suddenly come up. He then asks one question, whether he happens to know where all these stones came from. In response, he says that memory stones are ores mined from the planet Eruka. The scene shifts to Suho's guild, where Lee Sun-woo arrives with his swords covered in blood. The children become frightened upon seeing him in this state, and Gunwoo asks him who he is. He asks if he is Gunwoo. Dr. Toddler observes that memory stones appear to be quite common there unless they are broken into very small pieces. They share the same energy wavelength. He explains that if blood crystals are like batteries, then memory stones serve as transmission devices, and he says that the High Elves of planet Eruka use these stones to communicate from one end of the planet to the other. He inquires about what is meant by High Elves. He says that they refer to the high-ranking elves on planet Eruka, and the dimensional energy measuring device was an additional result of their research. He elaborates that their ultimate research goal is to create a communication network that the elves, specifically the High Elves, can use, and they plan to replicate it on Earth. Going further, they would like to create a teleportation portal that can connect the entire planet. He reveals that this is secret information obtained from some of the elves who occasionally visit Earth, and they mention that on Eruka, the High Elves can use the memory stones to observe other people's dimensional energy levels, class, and other important traits. He mentions that it means when he meets a High Elf, all of his personal information will be revealed. Park Soo-ho wonders if the status window he sees is the same as the ones the High Elves see. He checks the status screen, which shows no signal. He states that he needs to fix this, even if it means staying up all night, and he probably won't leave the lab until he fixes it. He adds that if he waits here for a moment, the guide will be here soon, and he should look around the city. He leaves the place, saying not to go too far and suggesting they talk again tomorrow. He stands alone there, looks at the screen, and remarks that it seems only this much has been discovered until now. He touches the memory stone and mentions that the High Elves on Eruka might know about the existence that is observing him, and perhaps even the secret behind the great disaster and the appearance of dungeons. He concludes that he needs to go to Eruka. Meanwhile, William arrives and introduces himself. He mentions that he is the guide from the Lawrence Corporation, a pioneer in the dimension industry. He points to the screen and explains that there's a place he wants to go to, and he asks if it would be possible for him to go there. He specifies that the place is the South Portal E-101 in London, which is the 11th Infantry Brigade's operation area. He inquires if this means that he would like to participate in clearing the E-101 portal dungeon. He responds with a yes. On the other side, Dr. Toddler sits in his lab, checks the system, and wonders why Park Soo-ho's data has come up as an error. Meanwhile, David arrives and mentions that the Dragon Knight came to visit, so how could she not come to see him? She asks about the Dragon Knight's whereabouts. He explains that something suddenly came up, so he asked a guide to take care of him. He then asks if she could place her hand on this device, showing her an energy measurement device. She complies, and it displays her strength and agility. He expresses happiness that it's working. She comments that the number should be in the 4 digits to feel like something to brag about, even though it seems she needs more training. She leaves, saying she is going to look for the Dragon Knight. He contemplates the 4 digits and mentions that the current limit is 999. He considers increasing the limit to 99.99 and, after adjusting, he is shocked to see the result. Meanwhile, Park Soo-ho and William have reached Portal E-101. Upon seeing a monster, it has been captured in chains and attacked by armies. William explains that they are paralyzing the monster to capture it for research purposes since they are destined to be killed anyway, and their company is acquiring them for a low price. He continues, stating that they are currently in a level 5 dungeon filled with giant grasshoppers, and there are 18 hours left until the dungeon break. William informs them that these days, guilds are using many celebrities to boost profits from dungeons, and he asks if they are under attack. He informs that currently, more than half of the area is engaged in battles, but that won't deter them from raiding dungeons. A helicopter has fallen, and he inquires if the rest of the team has also descended into the dungeon. He confirms that the entry procedure has been taken care of, and the team is already there. He introduces them as Lawrence Corp's Phoenix team, one of the best combat teams in England, consisting entirely of ranked combatants, specially selected by their company for his mission. He further introduces Robert Cole and says that he is the ace of the Phoenix team and the captain of the 2nd Phoenix team. Park Soo-ho asserts that he doesn't need their assistance because he intends to raid the dungeon alone. He emphasizes that it's a level 5 dungeon. He checks the status window and remarks that it's still not working. He then asks if the limit of the B-rank beast farm was 14-0. Park Soo-ho enters the dungeon alone, and William asks Robert what they should do, or if should they not follow him immediately. He says he doesn't see why they should when he does not want them to. After a while, David joins them and asks Robert why he is here and not out catching grasshoppers. He questions why a hero who is supposed to be busy saving the world is in the countryside like this. He responds that they have to prepare for a quest and leave. She then turns to William and inquires why he seems so upset all by himself and mentions the Dragon Knight. He explains that the Dragon Knight went into the dungeon by himself a moment ago, and he couldn't stop him. He expresses concern about what they should do if something goes wrong. She remarks that it seems he doesn't know much about the Dragon Knight and mentions that she will wait at the Pink Ice Cream Cafe, so he should let her know when he comes out. Before she goes to the cafe, she notices that he has come out. She is happy to see him, but before he greets her properly, a fire boar escapes there and destroys things. She gets angry to see that it has destroyed her favorite restaurant. She moves forward and with a megaton fist, hits it, knocking it down. She then comes forward and introduces herself to Park Soo-ho. She says she has been meaning to meet him since the day she saw him turn the megalopersodon into fish food. She adds that at that time, she realized he was the same kind of person as herself. She expresses her desire to see him fight a monster in close combat, using only his strength. He agrees, and then both enter the portal. The news broadcast reports that the Dragon Knight Park Soo-ho and England's top-ranked David are saving England and clearing a level 5 dungeon 15 times in 40 minutes. All awaken associations in England, including the Lawrence Company's Phoenix Guild, are expressing their thanks to Park Soo-ho. Meanwhile, the captain asks Kim Miso if there has been any news from Park Soo-ho. She replies that she can't contact him either. He inquires whether the Soo-ho dungeon has been cleared and if there is anything noteworthy from the dungeon. She informs him that there wasn't anything of note. She questions why he's so concerned, pointing out that as long as they pay back all the money, it should be fine. He counters that a level 7 dungeon is about to appear, and she doubts that he would be preoccupied with money at this moment. She presses further, asking what's bothering him, and wonders if there's something she doesn't know. He tells her to think of a way to bring Park Soo-ho back to Korea quickly. She reassures him, saying he doesn't need to worry too much, as he will return once he checks the internet. She mentions that a video was uploaded to the Soo-ho channel on YouTube an hour ago, and shows him the video. She says that Lee Sung-woo has caused a significant incident this time. An announcement expresses gratitude to everyone who participated in the celebration of the successful dungeon clear. Since the party is for everyone present, it hopes they have fun. David remarks that today has been the best day for Park Soo-ho. He responds, stating that it felt even better than when he caught the giant tentacle shark. He also mentions that his fists are among the best he has seen from the Awakened. She asks if he has met Sylvia in Russia. He inquires about who Sylvia is. She explains that Sylvia is quite famous among the tamers and that she left everything behind and flew to Russia after hearing about him. She adds that there should have been many tamers like Sylvia who flew to Russia to meet him. He asks why she wants to meet him. She responds that since he's the Dragon Knight, there isn't a single tamer in the world who can tame a wyvern. He takes a sip of his drink and casually says it's easy. She advises him not to rise to the champion's provocation. He asks for clarification, wondering what she means. She explains that it seems he hasn't seen the news yet and proceeds to show him the news about Lee Sung-woo. She tells him that he is currently ranked first in the world, originally Korean, and his real name is Lee Sung-woo. He responds that he doesn't know and has never heard of him. She continues, cautioning him, and emphasizes that this guy is a murderer. She suggests that if he can avoid it, he should not interact with him. She adds that he's the SPFC world's #1. Known for his achievements and globally acknowledged as a hero. She admits that she had honestly wanted to befriend him and once had the chance to talk to him in a friendly setting. But she lost. She praises his strength, even though he lost, and mentions that it was the best match of her life. She recalls seeing something unsettling in his eyes that day. She extends her hand and shows him the result, explaining that she had to undergo 8 major surgeries on her left arm. She goes on to mention that many challengers have died in matches, even when he's winning by a large margin or when they've forfeited. He asks what kind of grudge he has against him to provoke him like this. He watches the news of the attack on Soo-ho's land and is shocked to see that his territory has been attacked. Meanwhile, he dials Park Jun-ho, who asks why they haven't been able to contact him for so long. He responds sharply, telling him to be quiet and to explain what's happening there. He relays that Lee Sung-woo has burst in, and if he doesn't come out, he threatens to kill all of them. 2 of the wolves on patrol have died, but there's no explanation for why the alarm didn't ring when they were attacked. He investigates and discovers that there's no signal. He deduced that the alarm didn't ring due to an error in the status window. With pack members dying, he wonders why the others weren't able to react, whether they were restricted from leaving their assigned area. He questions what the other guys were doing when the incident occurred. Junho responds by asking what he expects them to do against Lee Sungwoo, emphasizing that he's ranked #1 in the world. Nevertheless, he insists that he come back quickly. He thinks to himself that once he returns, he will subject the guys to special training until they wish for death. She inquires if he's leaving. He affirms that he has to go immediately. She pleads with him not to go, arguing that Lee Sungwoo's plan is evident, and she doesn't understand why he's so fixated on him. She suggests that there must be a purpose behind the champion taunting an awakener who isn't even registered in the rankings yet. She warns that it's exceptionally rare, and considering his actions so far, there's a high probability that something unfortunate will happen during the match. He reassures her, saying it's fine, and asks her to say goodbye to Toodler and William on his behalf. Dr. Toddler observes him and comments that he had wanted to keep him here a bit longer, expressing regret over why David had to bring that up. He reassures him, saying not to worry, as he'll be released in a little while. Dr. Toddler then uses his summoning wyvern portal, and a wyvern appears. He notes that the skill recovery time is exactly 23 hours, 28 minutes, and 14 seconds, just as expected. He contemplates that an artificial ore was created by combining a memory stone with atacamite. And he thinks about the elements of earth, wind, fire, and water, which haven't been shown yet. He reflects on Park Soo-ho's known dimensional energy abilities, which are almost the same as those of the High Elves. He speculates that Soo-ho's status window probably wasn't working properly after he touched this atacamite. He explains that after coming into contact with an atacamite of this size, an error appears on the status window, and all skills using dimensional energy are halted for approximately 24 hours. He ponders if humankind's awakening and leveling are evolving in the same direction as the planet Eruka's elves. After a while, England's Security Service Director, Gilbert Reynolds, calls David and asks if she is with Park Soo-ho right now. She confirms that he has just left, and all the information she could store in the stone has been recorded. Gilbert informs her that he left earlier than expected and instructs her to come to the Security Service headquarters as soon as she can. The director then calls Dr. Toddler and inquires about his thoughts on the test. Dr. Toddler responds affirmatively, stating that the test went as expected. He explains that it means if it works on Park Soo-ho, it will also work on the aliens from planet Eruka. He believes the time to teach those arrogant elves a lesson has come. The director raises concerns about the Eruka elves being close allies who have shared knowledge about alien technology, suggesting they should exercise discretion. Dr. Toddler counters by noting that alliances don't last forever and warns that the Eruka elves could turn against them at any time. He acknowledges that there are still many problems to solve before commercialization, but he emphasizes the rising crime rate among awakeners worldwide and the need to regulate them as levels become equivalent to power. Dr. Toddler expresses concern about Park Soo-ho's physical stats, which average around 8,000, and questions whether it will be enough to stop monsters like him. Meanwhile, Park Soo-ho is on his way to his territory, seething with anger at the audacity of the invasion. He's determined to destroy whoever dared to encroach on his territory. Han Dong-soo asks what Soo-ho said. Park Jun-ho informs them that they might be in deep trouble and shows them his message to endure special training until they feel like they are dead. They all scream and inquire what they are supposed to do against the world's No.1, who even beat up an S-ranker. They watch the news when Lee Sungwoo meets them. In the comments, people call them weaklings. Park Jun-ho acknowledges that he knows no one is on their side when they are victims. Jang Yi-shik questions why he had to upload that video. Han Dong-soo says to sue Lee Sungwoo. Myungjin mentions that there's no way they can rebut the comments claiming what had happened was a disgrace, and they should always remain calm in the face of danger. Park Jun-ho warns that when he comes back, they should know that they won't be safe, and he is really angry. Myungjin suggests that everyone temporarily withdrawing from the guild to weather out this storm could work. Jang Yi-shik inquired about what the bureau said. Han Dong-soo replies that they said it's a pity. He gets angry and mentions that a foreigner illegally entered the country and trespassed into a guild's territory. Not only that, he even attacked them and caused damage, but they won't do anything except say it's a pity. He adds that at the very least, shouldn't they catch him and hold him responsible for his actions? Han Dong-soo also mentions that there's an article saying that he returned to Japan. Jang Yi-shik says he can't stand this and suggests going to talk to the bureau about it. Park Jun-ho speculates that they are probably telling them that things will be troublesome if this becomes an international incident, so they should take care of it themselves. Jang Yi-shik questions whether Lee Sungwoo is part of the Defense Agency of Japan. He says he doesn't think this can fall into personal vendettas. Myungjin remarks that the ones who are truly humiliated seem to be the government officials, and officials who push the citizens' hardships and responsibilities off on them are truly a disgrace. Jang Yishik adds that it's also shocking that there isn't even a single article on their side when they are the victims here. Han Dongsu mentions that there is an article that came from America saying the Suho Guild should move to a superpower country that can protect them, like them. Park Junho agrees, stating that this happened not because they are weak, but because their country is weak, and they should have emigrated a lot sooner. They recall the moment when Lee Sung-woo came to them and threatened to bring Park Soo-ho in within 10 days, otherwise they would all die by his hands. Han Dong-soo insists on waiting until Soo-ho comes back, and he will surely crush that bastard into dust. Park Junho says they also have something they should do before he comes back. After a while, Park Junho and Han Dong-soo are searching for something in the garden. Park Junho mentions that he is certain they buried it somewhere before leaving. At that moment, he receives a call from Kim Miso. She expresses her gratitude for their cooperation until now, mentioning that they were able to finish exploring the dungeons because of their help. He acknowledges that they did sign a contract after all and then cuts the call. He suggests to Dong-soo that they should go inside the beast farm. He points out that those people probably installed listening devices in important places before they left. He says that he shouldn't be too hard on Section Chief Miso as she has always looked out for them. He admits that's true, but there's a saying that one's enemy is usually found close to home. After a while, they reach the beast farm and see the animals playing. Park Junho comments that the family is getting bigger in an ownerless house and asks where he is. Han Dong-soo mentions that there's a news article from yesterday, which states that he was seen riding a humpback whale in the South China Sea and catching 4 megaloprisodons with an ice vortex. He says that if he's in the South China Sea, then he's almost home. He adds that it seems like he has leveled up a lot while traveling, and to think he froze the sea to kill sea monsters. After a while, they come across news reporting that Park Soo-ho is attacking Tokyo, and they are shocked to see this. He is demanding that Lee Sung-woo come out. The breaking news broadcast announces that the Dragon Knight has suddenly appeared in the middle of Tokyo, and is searching for Lee Sung-woo. They have received a report that he has entered the country illegally. Although the unexpected arrival of the Dragon Knight has disrupted traffic, there hasn't been any major damage so far. The Awaken Federation's criminal task force appears to have arrived on site. They mention that the World's No. 15 and Lieutenant Seiski's Tokyo Team 1 are also on their way to the site. Additionally, they have just received news that the Type 10 Tank Battalion is en route to the Tokyo site, and footage of the unmanned air drone battalion on its way to the site has been sent as well. Meanwhile, in the Japan Ministry of Defense Situation Room, a person reports that Tank Battalion Team 1 is ready, the Combat Drone Battalion is ready, and the Combat Satellite target locked. Dago, second in command of the Awakeners Federation, informs Kurosawa, Minister of Defense, that Park Soo-ho is someone their people have been working to persuade to join their side. He mentions that Seiski has also arrived, so for now, they will observe and determine if he's worthy of using their defense assets. On the other side, Seiski reaches Park Soo-ho and informs him that he is under arrest for illegal entry, causing social chaos, fear-mongering, and other public order violations. He inquires if he is Lee Sung-woo. He identifies himself as Seiski Kazuhiro from the police department and politely requests him to disembark from the Wyvern and comply peacefully. He warns that if he is not Lee Sung-woo, he should leave immediately. Growing frustrated, Seiski attacks him and binds him with his magic, instructing him not to move as it will only tighten further. As he prepares to launch another attack, Park Soo-ho delivers a solid punch and throws him away. Park Soo-ho asserts that if his territory is attacked, he will defend it with his life. He acknowledges being scared and praises him for being as strong as the rumors say. He admits that if he hadn't cast a debuff the moment he was hit, his face would have been crushed. He tells him to leave if he knows what's good for him. Seiski advances to attack again, warning that he will face additional charges of assaulting a police officer. He employs the air vortex power to throw him against a building, leaving everyone shocked. He reiterates his demand for Lee Sung-woo to come out and not send his minions. Meanwhile, Kurosawa, who is watching everything live in his office, remarks that Park Soo-ho is even more amazing than he thought, and he appears to be an even more attractive asset than Lee Sung-woo. Dago mentions that before this, Park Soo-ho had sent an invitation to them, and they plan to reschedule the meeting as soon as the airlines become safe. On the other side, Park Soo-ho declares that if they don't bring Lee Sung-woo out, he will burn down everything within a kilometer radius. The operator in the Situation Room states that the citizens are in danger, and they have to eliminate the Dragon Knight with the satellite. Kurosawa comments that it's just getting interesting. He asks Dago why he is so nervous and inquires about what comes next. Dago responds that Lieutenant Masai is preparing. After a while, Lieutenant Masai arrives where Park Soo-ho and suggests that it would be best if he stops there. He says that he brings Lee Sung-woo out and gives him a 30-minute deadline. He responds that Lee Sung-woo cannot come here right now because he is currently raiding a level 7 dungeon. He asks for details about the location, to which he replies that he cannot meet him right now and that it will take at least 10 days for him to come out. Growing angry, he questions someone who needs 10 days to clear a dungeon, provoking him. He states that he will come back then. He emphasizes that he will have to pay for what he has done today. He insists that it's their fault and accuses them of stealing the youth or eggs of a next when the pack leader goes out to hunt. Then, he flies away with his wyvern. On the other side, Dago asserts that they cannot simply let Park Soo-ho leave like this as it would result in international humiliation. Kurosawa responds that it's even more humiliating to use the full force of the defense army against a single awakener. He suggests that since Park Soo-ho mentioned he's coming back, they should request Uramaka's to escort him until the air defense identification zone with the F-35. Meanwhile, Park Soo-ho notices a black portal and wonders if it's the gateway to the planet Gutchin. On the other side, in Soo-ho's land, they are all happy to see the news about Park Soo-ho declaring war against Lee Sung-woo. The news reports that Lieutenant Seisuke, who lost consciousness from a single strike while attempting to arrest Park Soo-ho, has been transported to the ICU due to a concussion. They mention that the Japanese government has categorized this incident as an attack and threat against Japan. They have requested Park Soo-ho to be extradited into their custody. Otherwise, they will declare war against Korea. As a result, the ministers who have entered an emergency meeting have not yet made a statement. After a while, they hear Gunwoo's voice filled with excitement as he greets his uncle Park Soo-ho. He asks where his dad and uncles have gone. He explains that they were guzzling down alcohol while watching TV in the office. He enters the office, and they are all shocked to see him. Angrily, he questions what they are doing, and in response, they all start running from there. Meanwhile, in an emergency meeting of ministers, there is a heated argument among them, with some siding with Lee Sung-woo and others with Park Soo-ho. At that instant, the president of South Korea arrives and asks if Lee Sung-woo and Park Soo-ho know each other. The assistant secretary of state reports that there is not a single point of contact between them. The president then inquires why Lee Sung-woo did something like this. He mentions hearing that Lee Sung-woo was the one who initiated the conflict and questions why someone who betrayed their country is picking a fight with Park Soo-ho. The Awaken Bureau director offers two possible explanations. The first is that Lee Sung-woo became jealous of Park Soo-ho's recent and swift rise to fame outside the country. The president turns to the Minister of National Defense and asks if they can win a conflict against Japan. The minister responds that if it were just 10 years ago, they might have stood a chance, and if they receive a larger budget now, they might be able to take measures to stand a chance against them within 10 years. He insists, just give them Park Soo-ho. The Awaken Bureau director interjects, stating that they believe their second guess is more probable. He explains that this is a plan made by their government to scout Park Soo-ho. The president contemplates that if it's as the director says, the threat of war is just a bargaining chip. The director points out that in the current climate, where both countries are already overworked trying to stop dungeon breaks, a war is realistically impossible. This implies that they want Park Soo-ho that much. The president asks if Park Soo-ho is that powerful, considering he's not even a planet returnee like Lee Sung-woo. The director responds that Park Soo-ho is a bit different from others. He elaborates that the reason not only Japan but also countries all over the world are so desperate to scout Park Soo-ho is because of the unique skills that only he possesses. He inquires about the skills that make people so desperate to have Park Soo-ho. He learns that Park Soo-ho is on his way to mastering elemental magic, a skill said to be unique to the high elves of the planet Eruka. He acknowledges that there has been an increase in the number of individuals who have returned from Eruka after studying it with great difficulty, but none of them possess the ability to perform area magic. He explains Park Soo-ho is like a lottery ticket that can earn them a huge sum of money. The president agrees, stating that if it's a substantial amount, they must protect him even if it means going to war. He then instructs the Minister of Justice to put Park Soo-ho on the list of VIPs and forbid him from leaving the country. After a while, the news reports that the government had declined Japan's request for Park Soo-ho's extradition. Kim Miso and the director are in the car, and Kim Miso remarks that, in the end, it was about the money. The director asks why she is acting like that and who she thinks was the one who stopped him from being deported to Japan. He instructs her to tell Park Soo-ho that they will raise the Soo-ho Guild to level 6 soon, and they will need to focus on increasing the farmlands to cover all of the Gyeonggi regions. And this way, Korea will become the world's granary instead of Eruka. She mentions that they were contacted by Mr. Max, and they have agreed to meet on Suho Land tomorrow. Meanwhile, in Seoul, Area 2's Grasshopper Dungeon, Level 3, Park Suho is subjecting these four to tough training, and they are all struggling. He informs them that they still have 10 rounds to go. Just then, he receives a call from Granny Sukja. He inquires if something has happened. She asks if he is allowing the others to eat while he is training them. Park Suho responds that they ate a lot when he was not there, so they don't need to eat right now. Granny Sukja mentions that she is giving the phone to Miss Miso to talk to her. Kim Miso takes the phone and mentions that she heard he has been undergoing high-intensity training in a dungeon without even stopping to sleep in the 3 days since he returned to Korea. She asks if he is aware of Japan's severe reaction and mentions they have a rather nice solution for it. Park Suho reflects to himself that in the human world, there are human rules, and he momentarily forgets that going against them can be a hassle. He says to meet her at home. After a while, Park Suho arrives home, and Kim Miso introduces him to Mr. Max, the Asian branch manager of the SPFC. Park Suho asks what the SPFC wants from him. He explains that not long ago, the champion Lee Sung-woo challenged him to a match by name and claimed that Park Suho is nothing, and he doesn't even need one hand to beat him. He acknowledges that he recalls something like that but wonders why Lee Sung-woo would do something like that. He elaborates that it's all about earning money. If the match were to happen, an astronomical amount of money could be earned. He advises him not to think about it too much and just agree to it. He adds that if he agrees, he can prevent the war from happening and earn a huge sum of money, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He reflects on when David warned him that Lee Sung-woo is a psycho murderer and advised him not to interact with him if possible. He mentions that he can legally kill Lee Sung-woo if he agrees. He requests a clear explanation of the SPFC rules, emphasizing that they won't hold him at fault for any accidental deaths, and they do not condone murder. Kim Miso assures Mr. Max that she will contact him again after discussing things with Park Suho. Mr. Max expresses his hope that they make the correct choice and leave. Kim Miso reassures Park Suho that if he doesn't feel like agreeing, he doesn't have to. She says that the war won't break out. However, Park Suho expresses his strong desire to do it. She points out that Japan's intentions are straightforward, either appease him or eliminate him. He asserts that he doesn't care about Japan's reasons. He simply wants to beat Lee Sung-woo since it's not against the law. She inquires about his thoughts on donating the proceeds of the match to Japan, emphasizing the importance of appeasing Japan before the match. He responds with an affirmative. She mentions that she will inform Mr. Max of this idea. Then, she takes out some documents and reveals that there's one more thing to discuss, an official order that has come from the government. She hands him a document and announces that there is a general assembly of all guilds once a year. During this event, all the large guilds at level 6 gather together. She states her intention to invite him there. He inquires why he's being invited when his guild hasn't reached level 6 yet. She informs him that the Suho Guild has officially achieved level 6 status and presents him with a level 6 shield to congratulate him. She also explains that this is the certificate awarded by the Bureau, and that the entire Uijeongbu region will be entrusted to him, along with autonomous rights over the territory. Furthermore, she mentions that once the infrastructure has been established and people begin to settle in, the government will designate all the land managed after a while. He presents the document, and Park Jun-ho remarks that these people ignored them when they were facing difficulties. But now, what is this? He questions why they are being given the land they had previously relinquished, and being tasked with guarding the country. The monk chimes in, mentioning that they haven't even undergone military training, so question their ability to guard the country. He responds, stating that the decision has already been made, and the government must establish the city first. The construction in their designated area will still take some time. He speculates that they might just be exploited by the government. He adds that it could be easier to expand the beast farm than what they are being offered here. Han Dong-soo suggests that it might be 100 times better to simply accept the money and emigrate elsewhere. He states that they will maintain Namyangju as their headquarters and reveals his plan to divide the new region into sub-districts. He inquires if they are going to become branch managers, possessing similar powers to mayors. He also mentions that Seoul Area 13, where they are situated, is as large as Gyeonggi-do, so he likens his role to that of a provincial governor rather than a mayor. He further asserts that he will be the one appointing the branch managers, making it more accurate to describe them as lords and castellans rather than mayors and provincial governors. Then the monk, while looking at the news, remarks that due to the agriculturalization of Suho land, Korea is poised to become the grain hub of the world, resulting in astronomical income. However, he questions whether they can compete with Erica's agricultural industry, which boasts several trading gates worldwide. He points out that Erica's products are costly, and there are too few gates to meet all the planet's needs. Therefore, he suggests that they are targeting the niche market. He states that if this venture succeeds, Suho will become a lord with a territory generating a substantial income, and they will be the Castellans responsible for safeguarding that land. He reminds them that they have already signed the contract and advises them to retain 2 copies of such an agreement to prevent any disputes. He asserts that everything has been decided, and they can't even protect their own homes, so the notion of being Castellans is questioned. He concludes by saying that once they finish their meal, they should proceed with today's training. Meanwhile, Park Junho watches the news reporting that Lee Sung-woo has emerged from the dungeon. He exclaims, "Welcome back, he's in trouble now." An event is organized, setting up a match between Lee Sung-woo and Park Suho. Lennox comments that a one-on-one battle between Awakeners is a completely different challenge from hunting in a confined space, and he predicts that Lee, with his extensive experience, will triumph over Park Suho. Right SPFC commentator emphasizes that Park Suho has no prior experience in one-on-one combat with an Awakener on such a grand stage and suggests that he will soon discover how vastly different the SPFC is from street fights. Han Dong-soo checks the Suho channel and reads the comments from people. Excitedly, he remarks that he doubts they would have earned as much money even after raiding a level 5 dungeon 100 times. However, his mood changes when he comes across the news that Park Suho has donated the entire 240 billion fight money to Japan. He expresses his frustration, questioning why Park Suho would give away hard-earned money to another country. After a while they are all talking, he arrives and inquires about their activities. He mentions that his life is currently at stake, and he questions why he should give away all the money he earned by risking his life. He urges them to stop talking if they have finished eating and to go inside quickly because he intends to inspect the land in Uijeongbu. The scene then shifts, and the Awakener Bureau Director is seen having a phone conversation with the president. He acknowledges that the reported amount of fight money was reduced, and he assures that even if they distribute 5 billion to each recipient, it's more than sufficient. As a precaution, they have also signed a contract in which Park Suho agrees to donate his winnings to the National Development Funds. With this arrangement in place, they can quell any speculation about internal conflicts within the country. The director also praises Park Suho for his generosity and suggests that this is just the beginning, as the success of the agricultural project on Suho land will likely bring even more benefits. Meanwhile, he arrives with Wyvern, contemplating the facility that once served as the headquarters of the Third Corp, which is presently in the process of relocating. He believes that with some expansion and renovation, it should be capable of accommodating around 1,000 people. Kim Miso is already present to greet him and inquire about his perspective from above. He responds that it appears suitable and that planting within a 4-kilometer radius of this location should work well. She informs him that once he has demarcated his territory, she will submit it for approval. He utilizes tree spirit power to mark his territory. On the other side, the reporter greets all the martial arts fans and announces that they are on the Worldwide Martial Arts channel. He mentions that there are only 15 days remaining until the Battle of the Century, featuring champion Lee Sung-woo against rookie Park Suho. Wright and the Sidekick Channel team have prepared some footage of an interview with both the champion and the challenger. Earlier this morning, they strategically planned to meet Team Lee Sung-woo in front of the Level 7 dungeon in Osaka. He approaches Lee Sung-woo and inquires about how he's preparing for the match against Park Suho. He responds that he doesn't have time to prepare for it. He explains that the number of Level 7 dungeons is about to increase significantly, and there is no time for rest as they must act for the sake of humanity's peace. After a while, he approaches Park Suho's team and inquires if they are the members of Team Suho, including the individuals referred to as the Four Stooges. He introduces himself as a sidekick and asks them about Sidekick Channel, inquiring whether he could interview with Park Suho. Han Dong-soo suggests trying to find Park Suho in Uijeongbu, as he is likely involved in planting trees at the moment. Meanwhile, Akiko sits in JR Hotel, attempting to gain access to Park Suho's profile. After some time, she successfully gains access. The news reports that DGB Construction has started transporting building materials to Uijeongbu for construction on Suho land. There are only 2 days left until the match, but Park Suho is still in seclusion within Suho land and has not yet arrived in Japan. On the other side, Akiko sits with Lee Sung-woo in the Tokyo Top City Hotel. She asks him what he's thinking. He ponders how he should deal with Park Suho if he doesn't show up. She expresses doubts about it being easy. She mentions that she checked top-secret information from Korea's Awaken Bureau, revealing that according to records, Park Soo-ho returned after spending 1,000 years on another planet. He questions if he regressed multiple times over 1,000 years. She clarifies that no, she doesn't believe he's using a regression stone like him. He insists that it's impossible to live for 1,000 years without using a regression stone. She explains that, according to the records, he returned after spending 10 years on another planet. However, the passage of time on that planet is twice as fast as on Earth. If Park Soo-ho spent 500 years regressing on Earth, then spending 1,000 years on a planet not temporally tied to Earth is not impossible. She adds that this also explains why he has never met Park Soo-ho, as he regressed 20 years 25 times. He wonders if, in the absence of a regression stone, Park Soo-ho drank from the fountain of eternal youth or something similar. She shares her findings, mentioning a rare item known as the Crimson Divine Peach. She explains that it's an exceptionally rare item that appears only once every 1,000 years on one of the planets and vanishes after 10 days, and it's considered a divine fruit that grants eternal youth and immortality to whoever consumes it. She expresses her concern that Park Soo-ho might have lived even longer than him. He asserts that whoever his opponent is, he can't allow anyone who obstructs his plans to remain alive. On the other side, the commentator reports that 3 hours before the start of the match, the stadium is buzzing with excitement. But there's news that Park Soo-ho still has not arrived in the country. He questions whether Park Soo-ho has truly given up on the match. The commentator Masuda chimes in, emphasizing that even if it's just an event match, it shouldn't be easy for a rookie, especially considering it's his first match against the SPFC champion. They highlight that the Korean government bears all the responsibility for the pre-match inspection, implying that both Park Soo-ho and the Korean government should take responsibility and issue an apology. Meanwhile, Lee Sung-woo inquires Akiko if there is still no news about Park Soo-ho. She responds that according to the news from Korea, Soo-ho Land was recently expanded to Uijeongbu. He thinks to himself that Park Soo-ho indeed has an uncanny ability to foresee the future, as the first place where a level 7 dungeon opens in Korea is Uijeongbu. He reflects on how the combat unit that audaciously challenged the level 7 dungeon when it first appeared was obliterated, leading to a catastrophe in which Korea lost half of its total S-rank awakeners. Ultimately, they couldn't prevent the dungeon break, and due to the massive explosives used to combat the level 7 monsters, Uijeongbu was reduced to ashes. He believes that soon there will be numerous dungeon breaks across the continent, with the monsters advancing from North to South Korea, causing the complete collapse of South Korea. He understands that the Korean government is attempting to prevent this outcome by pushing Park Soo-ho forward. On the other side, the commentator announces that there are only 7 minutes left before the match begins. According to the rules, players will be disqualified if they do not arrive at the arena an hour before the match. However, there is uncertainty about whether Park Soo-ho can make it within the remaining 7 minutes. Just then, the sound of a wyvern is heard, and to everyone's surprise, Park Soo-ho has arrived. The commentator exclaims that Park Soo-ho has defied expectations by appearing in Tokyo Stadium on his wyvern, causing excitement among the audience. After a while, Park Soo-ho lands and sends his wyvern back into a portal. He inquires about the large crowd and the whereabouts of Lee Sung-woo. The commentator informs that it appears he is searching for Lee Sung-woo in the arena, and as soon as he calls out Lee Sung-woo's name, the spectators in the stands start shouting in response. Meanwhile, Lee Sung-woo is in a room with Akiko. He says that he is heading out. She attempts to stop him, but he reassures her not to worry, stating that he will win and return safely. Lee Sung-woo arrives in the arena and asks Park Soo-ho if he'll allow him to ask a few questions before he kills him. He inquires if he is a survivor of the apocalypse. He responds by asking what the apocalypse is. He continues, questioning if there was another regression stone and how many years he can regress with the one he possesses. He further inquiries about the nature of a regression stone. The commentator sends a transmission drone near them to capture their conversation. He taunts him, suggesting that he must find it enjoyable now that he has returned to the past, feeling like he has the world at his feet. He asks if he has come back to the past. Lee Sung-woo attempts to attack him, but Park Soo-ho retaliates by hitting him in the face and throwing him aside. This sudden turn of events leaves everyone in the stadium and those watching the live broadcast in a state of shock. The commentator remarks that Lee Sung-woo appears to have sustained significant damage and is not displaying any immediate response. He continues to approach slowly, and Lee Sung-woo is now in a precarious situation. He approaches him closely and instructs him to get up. He questions how someone with the title of champion can be so weak. He manages to rise to his feet, noticing that his nose is bleeding, and wonders if he was struck by magic. He comments on the necessity of humility and says an ant has a queen and a frog in a well. With frustration, he attempts to attack once more, but Park Soo-ho effortlessly punches him, employing tornado power to launch him into the air and following up with a fire fairy shower. The commentator, witnessing this one-sided beating, expresses disbelief at the unexpected turn of events. The shock is palpable among the spectators. Park Soo-ho firmly grasps Lee Sung-woo by the neck, insisting that he not feign death because he knows Lee Sung-woo is still conscious. The status window displays Lee Sung-woo's HP at 25%. Park Soo-ho decides to inquire as well, asking why Lee Sung-woo sought him out. Lee Sung-woo responds that he wants to kill Park Soo-ho.